Hey guys, welcome back to Razor RC. Today I thought I'd do a full review of the TLR 22T 3.0. I've had this truck for a couple of weeks. Doesn't sound like a lot of time, but I actually managed to put in a few hundred laps on this truck over the course of 3 days at the track. So I feel like I have a pretty good, feel for the truck now. So I'm going to do a review of the truck. Basically talking about the kit setup. I obviously haven't done that much setup changes, but the kit setup is actually really good. So I kind of feel like I have enough of a feel for the truck now and kind of do a review. So I hope you enjoy this. So this is the TLR 22T 3.0, the 1/10 scale electric stadium truck from TLR. It comes as a kit. You have to add your own electronics and tires and paint, but other than that, everything pretty much comes in the box. For an unboxing video, I actually filmed one, a week ago or so. Go check that out if you want to see what comes in the box. But let's kind of take a look at the truck now. You can see the body here. It's a change from the 2.0. I actually had a 2.0 for about a year and a half and enjoyed it a lot and had a lot of experience with that. But this is, the new body. Looks pretty cool actually. Quite a bit improvement. I like it a lot. I actually ran the J Concepts finisher body on my 2.0 for a long time, but this one, has kind of a more modern design. I like it a lot. I'll probably stick with this body for this truck. It's got kind of like, this Cobra look to it, I'd say. If Cobra Commander drove a stadium truck, he'd probably drive a TLR, honestly. So that's the body. And, what I thought I'd do is probably kind of walk through the truck front to back and talk about the changes, the things I see, and, kind of what's going on. So these are the wheels we're going to pop off real quick. They're not actually attached. And by the way, the stock wheel nuts are awesome. I mean, they're aluminum, serrated, lock nut, black wheel nuts. I like these a lot, so you don't have to swap them out. Nice little thing from TLR. So going through the truck front to back, you can see it's got the new arms, kind of this gull wing design. It's the VLA arms, so you can adjust basically where the hubs attach to the arms to these two different holes. Stock position is to the outer side. They've also redesigned the camber blocks and spindles. So now you have adjustable trail, 2, 3, 4 millimeters. You get this solid steel axle. Before you had sort of a two-piece with a hex, like a plastic hex, and then an axle that went through a drive pin, but it's one piece axle, all steel. And then back here you also have an adjustable camber insert to adjust basically where the ball cup mounts to the camber block. So, or to the, I guess the camber block. So anyways, yeah, nice little, or spindle, I guess. But a nice little design. You can see some changes with the ball cups here. So they've got these two new angled ball cups, sort of an S-shaped ball cup. It's basically got cutouts for the wheel. TLR uses a pretty deep dish wheel, so when you actually have it mounted, you kind of need extra cutouts to clear the wheel as it's mounted when you go full lock left and right. And something I noticed on this truck, it seems to be true, is that you have more steering lock than the previous truck. That was kind of one complaint I had about the 2.0 is, at full left, full right, it didn't seem like you had enough steering travel. And on my radio, I actually had the EPA set to like 92, 93% on the 2.0. But on the 3.0, I can actually get to 100%. So I think there's actually more steering lock left to right. So that was a nice change. The downside to these ball cups is there's now 4 different ball cups on this truck. You got these new S ones, but there's 2 different shapes, the left and the right. You got the normal straight one, and then back here on the steering, you actually have kind of this angled one right there. So 4 different ball cups. You used to only have 2. A little bit annoying. That means you got to keep extra spares and stuff. But for the extra steering travel, I think it was worth it. From the front end, the rest of this is kind of the same. Camber block, sort of bulkhead, hinge pin brace. Everything else seems to be the same. I didn't notice any differences. And then the steering rack also looks pretty similar. I think they made some small changes to kind of improve some of the slop. I did notice less slop actually on the steering than before. But I've only had this for a week and a half. We'll see if that develops any more over time. But there's very little clearance for your servo. I've got a Savox 1257 TG. And you can see basically it almost hits about 3 different spots up here on the top, kind of down here by the steering rack itself, and then I think there's one other spot I forget, it just barely clears. So I think maybe it's up top, I can't remember, but actually it's back here on the other side. This little thing kind of hits the servo. So it does clear, but it is tight. So make sure you got your servo spaced out correctly. I do have a build video on this truck, so you can kind of see that for some of my thoughts on how the build went. Other than that, down the chassis, pretty typical. You know, the chassis is different now. You have actually a transverse mounting position for the battery, whereas before you kind of only had inline when you had Shorty. You can see my electronics here. I've got a RX 481, Hobby Wing, XR10 just stock, and then a Reedy motor. This battery strap is not stock. Stock ones is honestly kind of ugly. I mean, what is that, man? It's kind of wishbone shaped or something, but it's ugly. I put on the carbon fiber one from TLR. It drops half a gram, but more importantly, it just looks a lot better. And then when you kind of go to the back here, transmission wise, you can see I don't have the stock parts in here. Let's kind of go through the stock parts. So there's a few things going on with the stock slipper and top shaft I wanted to talk about. First is this is the slipper plates. I think they've changed actually, if I remember correctly. This used to be all kind of this dark brown, blackish, I guess it's probably titanium carbon nitride coating, and it used to all be black, but it looks like they applied the coating first, and then they actually milled out these little recesses, these little grooves, to help you get a little more bite. I think they were milled prior to the coating before, if I remember correctly. The stock pads, in my opinion, you know, are kind of one of the weaker parts of this truck. At least, you know, maybe there's just my experience, but I found that they kind of glazed easily and, you know, didn't quite have enough bite. So it's nice to see they kind of have these new grooves. Hopefully that'll help a little bit. They also have the HD slipper spring, which lets you put a little more tension on the slipper. And so that, you know, I think probably helps things quite a bit. I still prefer my Avid Triad slipper, and I'm running Garolite pads actually, and a different top shaft. So, you know, I've got some changes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Also inside, you've got an aluminum idler gear. The 4-gear composite idler gear will also fit. That's what I put in my truck to save a little rotating mass here. But it does come with a metal aluminum one, so that should add some more durability. And then, you know, kind of on the rear end, you can see some changes. They have the 3.0 style camber block, which you can kind of adjust up and down. All aluminum hinge pin braces, which is nice. These feature inserts now, so you can adjust toe and what do you call it, anti-squat through using inserts that you kind of adjust these things here. So I think this is for toe, and then the fronts are for anti-squat. And then the arms are also different. It features these new Gen 2 sort of 2-piece rear hubs. They have an aluminum top plate and then a composite bottom piece here. And then, you know, the one thing I think you need to switch out of the box is these rear hexes. These are aluminum ones that I added on, but it comes stock, the composite ones, plastic ones, and they gotta go, man. I'm sorry, but those plastic ones will get stuck in your wheel hex. You pull it out, the drive pin will fall out, you'll lose the drive pin, you'll have to buy a new one. It's just really bad. So pick these up. They're not, you know, they're probably 25 bucks or so. Not cheap. I wish TLR included these and maybe bumped up the price, because I think that would be worth it for most people. I mean, almost everyone's going to want to get these. So pick these up, and that's really the only one thing I would say you have to have. But other than that, you know, a good truck out of the box, it pretty much has everything you need. You've got the, you know, aluminum motor plate with the milling here to lighten it. You've got the really nice shocks. You've got the machine pistons and bushings here inside. I'm still playing around with sort of springs and shock oil, but the shocks out of the box are really nice shocks. So I do like the TLR shocks. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. You know, I actually have Lunsford turnbuckles here in the back, but obviously that's aftermarket. So that's kind of an overview of the truck. You know, you're probably wondering, well, how does it drive, right? So I had a 2.0 with actually a fair amount of upgrades. I put on an Exotec chassis, which allowed you to have the transverse mounted battery. That was a big improvement. I put the 3-gear on like this truck has. You know, I forgot to mention, but this is mid-motor only. It comes with a 3-gear rear transmission, stand-up style. Previous one was, you know, kind of an in-between laydown, kind of in-between stand-up, but this is a full sort of dirt style stand-up. You can get a 4-gear transmission if you want, but there's no rear motor option anymore. That went away in the 2.0. So performance-wise, out of the box, man, this truck is awesome. I mean, it drives really, really well. I would say the kit setup is awesome. I actually haven't changed anything from the kit setup except some shocks and spring combinations, but I'm still working on that. But with the 2.0, there were a couple things I kind of found, in my opinion, there were weaknesses in how it drove. I mean, one was there wasn't enough steering lock left to right. So you'd always want a little more steering travel, and you couldn't quite get it. It's nice to see they addressed that. The second thing is corner entry, and I would say sort of mid-corner steering were kind of the weak points. It jumped well, you know, it accelerated well, it broke well, everything, but the mid-corner steering and sort of the entry steering was never quite there for me. I always ran a little bit softer front spring than most of the setups to try to get a little more. But this thing, it just dives in the corner. You can hit the brakes, whatever, get it to rotate. Mid-corner steering, it'll follow the line, whatever line you choose. It's more predictable and more stable, I think, as well. Corner exit steering, there might be a touch more. I didn't really pay that much attention to that because I generally didn't have an issue with that. But the steering on this thing is amazing. I also think it jumps better in terms of like how it flies through the air. You know, and it may be something to do with this body. The rear wings kind of got this, you know, sort of angle to it where it kind of funnels the air down the middle, and it seems to jump a little straighter than the previous one. Maybe due to the body. You know, I ran a J Concepts body previously, and this is obviously a lot different. So, you know, maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but it seems to jump straighter than me. Accelerating, braking, there's more rear traction under acceleration. You know, I don't know if it's the stand-up transmission or what, but when you're getting on the throttle, it's going, right? It's got traction. It's launching the truck forward. So that, in my opinion, is much improved. Under braking, it's stable. My other one was quite stable with the heavy Exotec chassis and 3-gear. This is also quite stable under braking. Seems to be about the same. I didn't notice much difference there. But, you know, so overall, this truck is better in every way than the 2.0. I mean, it's you know, I can't really fault this truck in any way. I mean, the 2.0 was pretty good. You know, I drove some T5Ms and stuff, and those always seem to have a little more steering than my 2.0, but this one has, you know, this thing should be putting you on top of the podium. I don't know. I mean, if you're a good driver, I'm not a great driver, but if you're a good driver, I think you'll win with this truck. I mean, there's really nothing performance-wise I think you'll find wrong with this truck. So out of one, on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, I give the performance pretty much a 10. It drives really well. I mean, the only things I would say is that the rear wing needs to be trimmed down. This has actually been cut down a bit. The stock wing is about twice as tall. It's like insanely tall and produces a crazy amount of downforce. I don't know why they built it that way, but, you know, I trimmed it. I was actually getting weird problems where, like, you know, my truck was chassis slapping off the face of jumps because there was just so much downforce. When I was accelerating, this thing was just squatting like crazy in the rear and like hitting the back of the chassis and bouncing off jumps and going through the air really weird. So once I cut that down, that fixed that problem. I don't know why they did that, but definitely look into that. The other thing with the body I would mention is that I actually cut down the back of the body. Stock has kind of got this really sharp angle, really long piece protruding from the rear, and that could kind of catch on the dirt and put a lot of leverage on the rear of the truck. So I rounded that off, and that seemed to help. The only area of performance I would say, you know, I have a complaint about is the slipper and top shaft combination. So as I mentioned earlier, The stock pads don't seem to have a lot of bite, and they do seem to glaze quite easily. So what that means is you got to crank down the slipper spring quite a bit, and so the HD slipper spring helps a lot. Before, you could barely get enough tension on the slipper to get enough bite, but this helps a lot. But the problem is, at least in my opinion, I mean, it seems like when you're putting that much force on the slipper, and you'll see the top shaft here is a two-piece design with sort of this steel threaded rod here and then an aluminum portion. But you're cranking down all this force on the slipper pads, and you know, this rod is honestly kind of thin, and this nut is tiny. I mean, there's barely anything sort of material wise to produce an even amount of force. So I found that you know, I don't really like this top shaft that much. I have actually had this rod back out on me, so I had to, you know, re-Loctite, put some red Loctite. I think people have actually bent this as well because they were just trying to crank it down so much. So yeah, that combination of the slipper pads, spring, and sort of this thin top shaft, I'm not really a fan of. You know, that's actually why I went to this MIP top shaft and Avid Triad slipper. And then also the one thing that makes the biggest difference, actually, these Gyrodisc pads. So if you get some, like, you know, Gyrolite pads, I think that'll work, you know, with the stock system. If you want, you can try a different system as well. But that was the one thing I'm not a big fan of. I mean, this slipper, or at least these pads, will, in my opinion, engage a little more smoothly. They produce a little more bite, and sort of the on-off nature of when it's engaging or not engaging is a little more consistent to me. So if there's anything else besides these aluminum hexes I could recommend, is maybe picking up these pads. These are sold by RC Shocks, but you can get them from other vendors as well. And I think you'll have a little more of a better experience with the slipper that way. But other than that, I mean, the truck drive is awesome. I mean, like I said, I haven't even changed the kit setup. It's out of the box phenomenal. So that's how I'd rate it performance-wise. In terms of durability, I've crashed the truck more than I like to admit. My local truck had this insane, like, double that was like 15 feet long or something, and you know, I'm running a 13.5 motor, and it come right immediately after like a 70-degree, you know, turn. It was like incredibly hard to make, and you know, I crashed this truck in pretty much every conceivable manner. I've lawn darted, I've cased the chassis, you know, I've you know, sort of spun it in the air, I've cartwheeled it, I hit the wall, I think I hit a pole like head on at, like, you know, 30 miles an hour or whatever. I've smashed this thing pretty much in every conceivable fashion, and nothing has broken. Like, literally, there's not even slop in these arms and stuff. So the truck, in my opinion, is extremely durable. I'd rate it 10 out of 10. I mean, the only thing that's ever happened is I popped a ball cut, but I snapped that back on and it's fine. I have not broken a single thing on this truck. The 2.0 is also very durable. You know, that I think I did break a C-hub once, and you know, I definitely bent some camber links before and stuff like that, but you know, nothing really major that I would say is untoward. The 2.0 was my son's race truck for a while, so he definitely put that truck through the durability torture test, and with this one, I feel like I have as well, with the amount of crashing I've done with this truck. So the truck, I think, is extremely durable. I don't think you'll have any issues. You know, there have been some people saying they've split some of these ball cups and stuff, and I guess TLR is looking into that, but I haven't had any issues. So to me, this is a 10 out of 10 durability wise. So the next category I want to talk about is value, and the 3.0 retails for $349.99. It's a $50 increase over the 2.0, and the 2.0, in my opinion, was a very good value. I mean, it sold for $299, which is, you know, pretty much at about the lowest price point among its competitors. The T5N was slightly cheaper, but it had very nice parts, right? All the shocks, the aluminum chassis, everything was really nice on the truck. The, you know, sort of nicely finished camber links. And that one also came as mid-motor or rear motor. It came with both transmission parts, both bodies. You could set it up as either, you know, straight out of the box. So for $299, that was a crazy value. This one is, you know, obviously a bit more, $50 more. You do get some nicer parts. You know, you get the aluminum camber block. You're gonna get these aluminum capped rear hubs. Obviously, much more complex caster blocks and spindles, and then the one-piece axles. Um, so out of the box, I think you get a little bit nicer components on this truck. Obviously, it has multiple types of ball cups. The body's better. It's a very thick body. I don't know if it's thicker than the 2.0. It probably is. I mean, it's one of the thickest bodies I've ever seen on an RC kit, actually. So a very durable kit. You got more milling in the chassis here. It's kind of hard to see with all these electronics, but there's more milling than the 2.0 chassis had. So overall, I think the components are nicer. Obviously, you lose the value with not having a secondary option for rear motor. But I'd basically price this kit as fair, sort of average in its class. The X-Ray sells for $349. The T5M sells for $279. The Kyosho is generally quite a bit more. So it's kind of middle of the road price-wise. I think the parts are really nice, though. There are some differences where you see Associated sort of cut costs a little bit. Their parts are made in China. These are made in Taiwan. I don't know if that makes much of a difference, but generally Taiwanese stuff is considered a little bit higher quality than Chinese stuff. Yeah, so I mean, it comes with wheels. It comes with, I'd say it's a fair price point. The Associated stuff also, you still get parts on parts trees. This thing, everything's already pre-cut basically from the factory. The body, the parts are all in bags and not on parts trees anymore. So I think you're getting a little more there. You get aluminum spacers here, for the camber blocks. So I think they spend a little bit more on minor details here and there, like the sticker sheet is pre-cut, the Associated stuff's not. So this is $70 more than the Associated kit. Is it worth $70 more? I don't know, but there's a little extra spent on this kit over those guys. So I give the value sort of a rating of 5 out of 10, which is what I consider average. Another area I want to talk about was support for this kit. So TLR in general, is obviously not as big or popular than Associated. It's more popular than Kyosho or some of the other guys, at least here in the United States. But I would say out of all of the manufacturers, they probably do the best to support the products online. I mean, they're on Facebook answering questions. They're making build videos, step by step. They're on the online forums answering questions. I feel like you can get a lot of support from them. Just in this modern day of social media, if you call Horizon Hobby, obviously they'll help you out if you're missing parts and stuff. So I haven't had any issues with that. So support-wise, I give it 8 out of 10. There's not as many setup sheets as some of the other guys because there's just not as many people running this kit as the big dog, sort of the big elephant in the room. But I think their support is in some ways a lot better, and then in terms of setup sheets, not as many, but they're really good. At least here in the U.S., they're a really well supported platform. You can definitely get a lot of aftermarket parts from Exotech or J Concepts or whoever, and sort of hop up your truck as well. So dislikes wise, is there anything I don't like? Well, I kind of already covered it. The slipper top shaft was the one area I wish they had addressed in the 3.0. You can do it yourself with, like I did with the MIP top shaft and whatever slipper and slipper pad combination that you want. Other than that, I don't really have any complaints. The truck, it drives awesome. It's insanely durable. It's extremely strong, tough truck. It just drives well. It looks good. It's just better in every way. Unless you absolutely have to have a rear motor truck, I think this is going to be one of the top trucks this year, and I recommend it. So overall, you can kind of tell my conclusion is going to be this is a highly recommended truck. I'm very happy with it. It obviously costs a little more than the 2.0, but I feel like it's definitely worth it. I mean, it's just a phenomenal driving truck. So if you're not winning with this truck, it's you or me in my case. But the truck itself, awesome. So anyways, this is kind of a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. It feels like people are starting to enjoy my videos, and and write comments and likes and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you if you like and subscribe. And you know, I'll be producing more videos in the future. So take care, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you guys in the next one.